Chris, great to be with you. Well, you got my name, of course, Dylan Taylor, founder and CEO of a company called Voyager Technologies. We're aerospace defense and space company, and located in Denver. Founded the company in August of 19. Went public earlier this year on the NYSE. And yeah, my pleasure and honor to be with you. Look forward to the conversation.
Awesome, awesome. You are officially our first astronaut guest, but you're not our first NASA related tangential associate. I worked at NASA from 2009 to 2011 in the business office. We weren't doing as much cool stuff as you guys are doing.
Very cool. I didn't know that. That's great. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did. I did get the chance to go suborbital uh, in December of 21. So yeah, that was a dream come true.
Wow, that's so cool. Definitely gonna dig into that. So couple questions. Why? Well, first, why get into this field? Why is this interesting and important?
Well, great question. So for
Thank
me,
you.
this has always been my passion, like since I was literally 3, 4 years old. Always passionate about space. Always passionate about frontier technology. And really kind of grew up in business running large public companies. That was really kind of my skill set if I had one. But like a lot of folks, was doing that and was successful in quotes, but maybe just feeling a bit purposeless and unfulfilled. And so for me, I really reflected on, okay, what am I truly passionate about? What impact can I make on the world? What's my purpose? What's my legacy? All those kinds of questions that people have. And for me, it had always been space. And back in 19, this is pre-COVID, of course, the co-founder of the company and myself were looking at the landscape, and we thought, there's a lot of really interesting things happening technologically in space. But a lot of these companies that might be 50 employees led by a technologist, they don't really know how to scale their business. They don't really know how to compete with the large aerospace primes. And the primes, they're capable of doing anything, right? Landing people on the moon, you name it. But they're not particularly innovative because they're not really set up to do that. So the thought was, we're falling further behind our adversaries, China, Russia, you name it. We have a lot of technological innovation, but it's not being harnessed. And can we create an operating company, a platform like a Danaher or a Heiko, if you know those companies, and really harness this innovation and be the best of both worlds? Be, prime contractor capable, but denominated on entrepreneurialism, flexible, adaptable business model. So that's what we set out to do. Very mission driven company. We're patriots. We believe very strongly that this country represents a value system, the Western value system, that's important to the world, and it's vulnerable in today's day and age. And so we believe very strongly that having strategic capability and leaning into the innovation curve is really important for this country. And so that's what we set out to do. And we've had some success, but we're just getting started. Our best days are ahead of us.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. So, how does one start a space related company?
Very carefully, as they say. I mean, rule one is pick the right co-founder. And
Mm,
there was a young man that I had mentored after his military service. His name's Matt Cooter, our co-founder, and he's a fantastic, fantastic, tremendously talented individual. But he had flown the F-15E, Strike Eagle combat missions in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He was a Distinguished Flying Cross Award winner. He was a Jabara Award winner, which is even a bigger deal for those who know what that is. And after leaving the military, I was kind of mentoring and coaching him a little bit. And he ended up going to Wall Street, was sort of what I had recommended he do. Worked for Goldman Sachs. And about that time, was when I was thinking about creating what has become Voyager. Matt was thinking the same thing. So I think picking the co-founder is really important. And then of course your first 10, 15 employees I think are as important, right? Because they're going to set the stage. And there's this old adage, Chris, I'm sure you've heard it. A's hire A's and B's hire C's, which is in my experience 100% true. So bringing in, real A talent from the get-go, I think was really important. But of course, you're selling them on a vision, not on a existing platform. So we, really, they really had to buy into what we were doing.
Hmm. Awesome. And it was 2019 when you started, you said?
Yeah, August 15th, 2019. That's right.
Okay. Wow. So, I mean, so much has changed in those 6 short years.
Mhm.
What were you focused on initially, and how has that evolved?
Yeah. Well, initially, we were really focused on this notion that NASA and other agencies were going to further commercialize. So we had a big strategy anticipating that NASA was going to commercialize the International Space Station and build not a government replacement, but a commercial replacement. That ended up being a very sound bet because we ended up
Mm.
winning one of the phase one contracts with NASA. Um, our project is called Starlab, which will be in orbit in 2029 and will be an amazing kind of game-changing platform for the future of humanity in low Earth orbit. So super excited about that. So that ended up being validated. We did not anticipate, I don't think, when we founded it, how important defense would be to our business, national security to our business. We had acquired some technology that ended up being a complete game changer on smart missile defense systems. And that technology is on things, you could call it more generally Golden Dome type activities. And so I didn't anticipate that when we founded the company. And I don't want to call that a pivot, but it's been a big part of our growth story. And I would not have anticipated that back when we founded the company.
Hmm. Got it. Got it. So, how any advice on how to win a contract with NASA?
Yeah, I do actually. I mean, I think start with the end in mind, right? So, for example, we knew or we believed that NASA was going to, like they did with the space shuttle. If you remember the space shuttle way back in the old days
Oh yeah,
with
I saw the last one.
the wings and all that. The government, George Bush, first George Bush, or no, sorry, yeah, first George Bush canceled the shuttle, privatized launch, right? That's what gave birth to SpaceX and others. We thought the same thing was going to happen on so-called destinations with the ISS. And so in anticipation of that, we said, okay, what do we need to be a safe pair of hands where NASA would feel comfortable awarding a contract to us for that? And we believed you needed a services component where you could demonstrate you could service the space station, and you needed a human rated hardware component. So we basically reverse engineered that. And there was a company in Houston called NanoRacks. NanoRacks was the biggest commercial user of the International Space Station. And again, they were great company, founder led, but they were looking around in the industry and saying, okay, we know the industry is changing. We don't want to sell to one of the big, 150,000 employee companies. We don't want to sell to a private equity firm. So we were a really good option for them. So we acquired them. And then there was an unfinished hardware component to what they had planned, which was a commercial airlock. An airlock is about the size of an SUV. It's how you get in and out of the station. The two airlocks on the International Space Station, one was Japanese and small and old, and one was Russian, which is off limits, to the Western countries, really. And so NASA was keen to get a commercial airlock on station, but they didn't have the, necessarily the funding to do that. So we put our risk capital in, got that commercial airlock completed. NASA launched that on a SpaceX rocket to the International Space Station. We got it installed with the last kind of node on the ISS, and we're able to get that online and commission it and get it working. So about that time, NASA was coming out with the RFP for the so-called CLD, commercial LEO destination. And we had the services piece, we had the hardware piece, and we were literally, Chris, we were 20 months old when we won that contract. So
Wow.
probably the largest infrastructure project in space, and we won that. We weren't even 2 years old yet. And by the way, we called the airlock the Bishop airlock after the chess piece, right? Because it was a strategic move that we were making. And so I think, back to the question behind your question, if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, there's this huge opportunity in our industry. How do I go pursue it? I think just mapping it out and saying, okay, and don't think about what you have. Think about what you can get, right? And just kind of reverse engineer it. I think that's. And by the way, you can buy that, you can build it, you can partner, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can actually execute on it. But I think being strategic about the capabilities, and that's the way we think about it. We think about it in terms of assembling capability, and and I think a lot of people probably do that, but they're just maybe not looking at the whole chessboard the way they probably should.
Mhm. Got it, got it. So, with Voyager, are you more focused on the aspects of space exploration that you're excited about, or do you try to be flexible and like, okay, NASA or some other commercial spaceflight companies looking for someone to build this?
Right. There's basically there's two screens that we have. One is what's in the best interest of the country, and I mean that sincerely. It's like what capabilities does this country need? Um, so sometimes we have to, you know, uh, communicate our point of view to the customer because they might not see it the way we see it. So we try to shape that. But then the other thing that we're focused on is where is the value capture the highest? And by value capture, I'm talking about uh, ultimately free cash flow conversion. So in space and defense, there's a lot of parts of the market that you could go after, but is very capex heavy, right? So it might be profitable in quotes, but if you look at the capex required to achieve that revenue and that EBITDA, there's basically nothing left over in terms of free cash flow. So we're looking at very capex light, very capital efficient parts of the market. So think of technology that's very exquisite, very disruptive, very innovative. That's the part of the market where we want to play, as opposed to kind of legacy, widget making. You have a factory; it's very capital intensive. You're competing mostly on price. That's not that's not typically the way we think about things.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome. So, I mean, you're clearly a very experienced, brilliant fellow. I'm curious what part of Voyager's mission gets your inner 3-year-old most excited?
Oh, all of it. I mean, building the space station. I'll start there, Chris. These people can understand that easier. I think the International Space Station is the most complicated machine humans have ever built. I think it deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. It's brought the countries closer together. We've had humans living up there for, I think, 26 years now, continuously.
Wow.
So I think it's an amazing testament of technology and, cooperation and all that. So to be able to build a commercial space station that's even more capable, um, that can take us into the future and combat the rise of China and other adversaries, to me, if you can't get excited about that, you're in the wrong, you to me, it's like so obvious that that's such a cool, amazing project. And, my passion, having, seen the Earth from space, I'd love to have like a G7 meeting up there or a UN Security Council meeting up there or something,
Oh, wow.
because I do think it changes your point of view. And I can attest to that because I've been up there. But and the people that I know who have been up there have had the same, experience. So to me, I'm most excited about that just because it's just it's a cool project, and the idea that you can kind of sit on your front porch and look up at night and see Starlab, flying over your head, and know that humans are up there living and working and doing research, I think is one of the coolest things I could conceive.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, with big tech right now, it seems like these AI engineers are the hot ticket. They're all, throwing as much money at these folks as it takes to get them to join, their mission. Who is the equivalent in the space industry? Like who are these incredibly valuable A+ players? What are they focused on? How do you get them to join your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple that I would point to that are already on our team. So SpaceX, I think, is the 800-pound gorilla, if you will. They're a partner of ours. They're going to launch our space station. We'll launch on Starship. So I think
Mm.
they're doing great things. Palantir's another one. people don't think of Palantir as a space company, but they're an investor in Voyager, and they're also an investor in our commercial space station joint venture, Starlab. So Palantir, I think, is another great example. We're partnered with NVIDIA on an edge computing initiative. We just made a minority strategic investment in latent AI, which is doing some really interesting embedded firmware intelligence on the actual chip layer. So, and then, we're partnered with other companies too, or legacy companies, right? Like Airbus is a partner on the space station. Mitsubishi's a partner on the space station. So we have a lot of partners, but I would say the most capable are the primes, of course, because they can do pretty much anything they set their mind to. But I think at the intersection of capability and innovation, I would say SpaceX would be, a leader. Blue Origin, which is Jeff's company, I think, is making some hay as well. I'd like to think Voyager's in the mix there also. But that's kind of how I would see it.
Hmm. Got it. Awesome. Awesome.
Mm.
Um, and no need to get political with this question. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos's impact on, the development of space exploration?
Yeah, I think Jeff and Elon have been super influential and positive for the industry. I mean, without SpaceX, we wouldn't have this robust capability to go to space every, 36 hours, I think is how frequently SpaceX is now launching.
Mm,
I think Starlink is a game changer as well. So I really credit Elon for cracking the code on rocket reusability. So so yeah, Elon's been hugely influential, and then yeah, I think Jeff also has had a big impact. Jeff is an O'Neillian, which I consider myself an O'Neillian as well. For those of you who don't know what that is, there was a guy named Gerard K. O'Neill or Jerry O'Neill who was a professor at Princeton back in the 70s who wrote a book called The High Frontier, which kind of talks about taking heavy infrastructure on Earth and moving it off world and kind of treating the Earth as a national park, if you will, and
mm,
getting all the heavy industry off the Earth. And there's a lot more to the philosophy, but Jeff is very focused on O'Neillian type concepts, as am I. So I think Jeff has made a big impact. I mean, he changed my life because without Jeff's new Shepard rocket, I would not have had the opportunity to see the Earth from space. So I think they've both made big contributions to the industry and are, great positive elements for what we're doing.
mhm. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Well, what do you see the future of the space industry? Maybe short and medium term. Like what exciting developments do you think are coming around the corner?
Yeah. So the way I would frame it, especially for people who maybe haven't tracked the space industry closely, think of it as beachheads, if you will. So low Earth orbit, which is where the International Space Station is, this is about 400 kilometers above the Earth. That's where a lot of the satellites are, Starlink and things like this. But think of that as being technologically conquered in quotes, because we've had the ISS up there for a long time, but it's being commercialized. So instead of government infrastructure, it'll be company-owned infrastructure. Further afield is what we call cislunar. So that's between geosynchronous orbit, which is where all the telecommunication satellites are, and the moon. And a lot of railroad tracks need to be laid between geo and the moon because GPS doesn't work, communications don't work. So you need to have position, navigation, and timing technology. You need basically a railroad to go back and forth. So things like orbital refueling matter and things like that. Then you have the moon. We're going to go back to the moon. China's going to go to the moon. We'll probably go back to the moon to stay, build some kind of infrastructure. That's government, but it's also commercial having a big impact. And then further afield are places like Mars, which of course Elon is very focused on, and then even deeper space, after Mars. But just to give you a sense of how complex these things are, and I'll just talk kilometers just because I'll keep it consistent. The ISS is at 400 kilometers, as I mentioned. The moon is at 400,000 kilometers, and Mars at its closest approach is about 60 million kilometers. So think of the moon as 1,000x the ISS, and Mars being 1,000x the moon,
Yeah.
or a million x the ISS. So just think about the complexity of something like Mars. It's just shocking to think about.
Hmm. Do you anticipate a better way to get to and from Mars to materialize in the next years, decades?
Yes, I do. I think nuclear is the only way to go long term. In my view, I think chemical rockets ultimately are just super inefficient. But that's going to take some time. Nuclear propulsion is being worked on, and there's a lot of propulsion technology that could be relevant, but I think nuclear makes the most sense. But I think, round numbers, that's probably 10, 15, 20 years off.
Hmm. Awesome. Is it a good time to invest in space industry companies like Voyager?
Well, I can't give any investment advice, but what I would say is if you like industries that are being impacted by technology, and you like industries that are benefiting from additional government, not only spending, but outsourcing, and you like industries that have a global growth profile, then if those are your screens, I think space and more generally national security, defense, and space is one area you should think about.
Hmm. Yeah, and obviously we're not giving investment advice here, but it does seem that our entire attention span is taken up with AI and AI developments. And oh my gosh, did we just make AGI? No, we didn't. Maybe tomorrow. It seems like maybe these space industries are like AI in 2020 or Bitcoin or crypto in like the mid 2010s. This could be a sleeping giant right now.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with any of that.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Do you have something else? Go.
Yeah, no, I think this has been great, Chris. I mean, I think, what I would leave you with in terms of Voyager and the industry in general is pay attention, set up some, whatever your method is, Google Alerts or whatever. But I mean, I think this is an industry that's evolving very quickly. And the other thing, just to caution, is make sure you understand who's real and who's not. Like a lot of, and I think you see this in crypto and you see it in AI. Just putting AI on your name doesn't mean you're an AI company. Um, and so I think you see this
Yeah.
a bit with space. And one of the knocks on space was that we had a big SPAC phenomenon, which we resisted doing that. We went public the old-fashioned way, um,
Hmm.
S1. But I think it's really important that you know who's real and who's not. And to me, the ultimate test is, have you ever put anything in space and does it work? And in our company's case, I think we have 4 million hours of spaceflight heritage. And in a lot
Wow.
of cases, you'll find people, companies that have, a few 100,000 followers, and they've literally not put a screw in orbit. So, just, caveat emptor, as they say, and buyer beware.
Hmm. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I watched a really cool documentary a few weeks ago called Wild Wild Space about
Seen it.
um, maybe a couple of your competitors. Just
Yeah.
fascinating. It was like catnip. Got me so excited about
Yeah, it was
all
great. I
things space
watched it.
travel.
I watched it as well, and I know many of the people in that film, and I think they did a good job. I mean, some of those companies no longer exist, which kind of validates what I just mentioned.
Yeah.
But I do think it gives you a sense for kind of how dynamic the industry is, which I think they nailed that part of it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It was awesome. Okay, we are coming towards the end of our time. I have one final question for you. It is an open-ended question. You can take it in any direction that you like. And the question is, what are you working towards?
As I mentioned, super passionate about the space station project, Starlab. I think that's a game changer for humanity. A lot of people don't fully appreciate microgravity as like a magic laboratory. You can do drug development, drug formulations, grow perfect crystals, whether that's for a semiconductor or for some other use case. So I think breakthrough drug development breakthrough manufacturing technology. That all is enabled by microgravity. And so I really feel strongly that what we're doing with Starlab is going to change the world. So I'm working on that, working on a lot of other stuff too, as part of the Voyager, 5 to 7 year growth plan. But that's the one that I'm working on.
Awesome. Awesome. And where can my audience find out more about you and Voyager and everything y'all are working on?
Sure. So I've got a personal website, dylantaylor.org. So feel free to hit me up there, or check out what I'm working on. I've got a bunch of other things I'm interested in. And then the company is voyagertechnologies.com. Taylor on NYSC is VOYG.
Nice. Killer ticker there.
Thank you.
Dylan, well, awesome. Thank you so much. This was a real pleasure. I could talk to you for the next 3 hours, but I know you're a busy man, so I will refrain.
Great conversation, Chris. Thanks for having me.
All right. And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.